What's up, guys? I'm Alex.
I'm Jason. We're the Table Monkeys, and today we are discussing
The
King's Move. Yeah, so again, we're going to talk about it, and the bottom line is people hate it.
Yeah.
Why do people hate it so much?
I think deep down they hate themselves.
Or they had like a really troubled childhood?
Probably, yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe
Or,
they just don't know how to be.
I think it's just they don't understand it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They just don't understand it. So, we're here to try to help you to understand it.
We're not experts. But
By no means are we experts, but we do King's Move. We have done a lot of research with King's Moving. We have had the opportunity to pull with the great Crazy George on numerous occasions, and I've trained with Tyler Hamilton, who pulled with Crazy George for a long time, and he's also a King's Mover. So we've been around it a lot.
Yeah, and I've had to fight this guy in practice for over a year now, and all he does is King's Move. So I've had to figure out some ways to beat it.
Yeah.
Or
And
at
you
least
have.
not
Yeah.
get pinned immediately.
Yeah. So we're going to go over what we understand about the King's Move, because once you understand it, it becomes a lot easier to beat, and you get an idea of the different ways to beat it.
Yeah.
Right?
So first things first.
Strap it up. All right, guys, we just switched sides to make this a little easier to explain. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the grip. So pretty much the only thing that you need to worry about in the grip is making sure that your knuckle is uncovered, your thumb knuckle, and that your first index knuckle is straight up, or as high to the ceiling as you can get it. Okay, so the way Michael Todd likes to do this is by driving the bottom of his hand down and then taking his grip. He also doesn't like to cover his thumb. The way that George does it, because his hand's a little bit smaller, he's able to grab you kind of up on your thumb a bit and just, again, make sure that his knuckle is really high. And because his hand's so small, it's hard to get a decent grip without covering his thumb. So he ends up with a decent hand position. And even if you do take his thumb, unless you're way stronger than him, his pronation is so strong, you can be up here on him, and he's got a good grip as long as he's got his first knuckle straight up. That's the most important part. And then the other most important part is having the match starting straight, or as flat as we can. It's really uncomfortable for a King's Mover if we start, you carve in on me.
Oh.
So if he starts trying to really carve in on me, I feel like I got to start like way the hell out here in order to still be able to get outside his hand. If I try to start squared up like this, he looks nice and straight, but he's really carved in. His shoulders look straight, so it's not a great position for me to start as a King's Mover here. So there's some tricks you can do, which I'm not going to get into, but for the most part, you want to just get your hand as flat as you can. And again, most of the setup, just talking to the ref, right?
Yeah.
You got to fight for yourself.
So off the go,
Yeah.
the key in the King's Move is getting outside. So that's rotation into the strap, into the back of the strap on my hand and my wrist.
Yeah. On the go, since you're trying to hit up, because height is always the most important part on the go, it's a little bit more into your hand. And then once you lock and start to roll outside, then you kind of transition it to the lower part of the strap a little bit.
So what that looks like is we're here ready to go, and I'm
Boom.
pulling back and rotating through this part of the strap.
Yeah. And even before you pull back, because the drag back is sort of the second part of the go, the first part is just rotating your hand out. Once his hand is rotated out into the strap here, I can really feel it pull on the strap here for me. So if I do it to you, let's go back to start. You can see the strap tighten on his wrist right there as I try to come out, and all I'm doing again is pushing on the strap here. Once you've got that tension, then you start to drag here, right? So now do your 1-2. So it's out and then drag at the same time, okay? And that pressure you're trying to maintain, again, with this high knuckle, you need to maintain your riser. If you do that and you lose your riser, it's going to be a lot easier for me to take your rotation.
Yeah.
So that riser, again, is the number one thing. That's why Michael Todd trains it so much, because it is really everything to this move. Because again, it's a hand-based move, right?
And you really want to avoid being turned in.
Yeah.
Right? So that initial rotation at the start and drag back makes it it creates some separation between our hands, so it makes it really hard for you to supinate and cup me in.
Yeah, and because he's dragging back, I have to chase him to the pad here, and it's just uncomfortable. And all that tension, and even it starts to dig into my arm with the strap down here in my wrist. It's just very uncomfortable with the strap in my hand. And if I try to push to the side on it, that's when it gets even worse. I lose even more of my hand, right?
Yep.
So as the King's Mover, you want to drive into me and I'll Kings?
Yep.
So as the King's Mover, once I'm here and we're locked, there's really only rotation is the only thing that's gonna sort of end it for me here. So what I'm trying to do is maintain that rotation and just constant pressure, back and out, back and out, back and out. If I pull too hard even, it's too uncomfortable for practice, you know, like, or for just demoing. So the point is that once it's set here, I'm not just waiting, I'm constantly pulling this way, out and around, out and around, out and around. As he drives, it gets worse for him, worse for him. As soon as he comes up for air and needs to try to go for a regrip, that's where I try to take everything. I'm waiting for that the whole time. You might drive again. I might still be waiting. I'm still gonna hold that rotation, hold it up as soon as he comes back again. Once it's time for me to attack, that's when I add my flexion. And then it's all over.
Yeah. All right, so the other way a King's mover beats his opponent is by finishing with a press. And you'll see Michael Todd do this. He's got a super fast transition from a King's move to a press. So we're gonna demo that for you right now. So I'm gonna drop into my King's move. And Jason's hitting to the side. He's losing his wrist. I want him to burn out. Same thing applies. I'm gonna rise and try and win hand control. And once I feel him burning out, I'm gonna make some pops to the side, just test the waters a little bit. I can feel him burning out. All right, so I'm gonna apply side pressure with my chest, like pec deck is what Michael Todd likes to say that it's similar to. So I'm applying pec deck pressure and also lat drag.
Kind of like a pull-up. It's kind of like doing like a pec deck and a pull-up. Sorry, pec deck drive and a pull-up at the same time.
Yeah. So I'm pushing this way and I'm pulling myself to my arm. And so what that looks like is I slowly look up, get behind, and press.
And it's done. And if you do that nice and quick, here, let me demo it. If I'm out here and you've got it, and now I've got the match coming back this way. Again, you'll see Todd too. He'll usually position his feet so that when it comes time, he can just get right up there, and then it's over.
All right, so now we're gonna go over the counters for the King's move, and we think there's about 4 main ways to counter the King's move.
But there's probably more, and as the sport continues to grow, people will find new moves,
right,
which is what the King's move is. It's a new move. So the first way to do it is just if you're straight up stronger than your opponent who's trying to King's move you, if you're able to turn them into a hook and mitigate their pronation off the go. So if we're up here for go and he's trying to get outside, if I can stop his outside drive by actually getting my finger drive on his hand so he can't get to that rotation in the strap that he wants, now he's using a lot more muscle and drive than he wants, and he feels the only, I mean, what do you feel like you can do from here?
Come inside?
Yeah, that's the only option, is come in with me, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
So that's the first way. If you're good enough at the hook and you can turn them in, but the thing you really want to focus on might be different. Like a lot of guys that hook, maybe you're thinking about trying to attack the rotation up here. We found anyway, the best way is with your pinky and your whatever finger that is, to drive down into your opponent's wrist and across to try to stop them from being able to get to the strap. That's the key part of the, what do we call that? The inside counter number 1?
Yeah,
the John Brzenk, or the John Brzenk counter. That's basically what Brzenk was able to do against Todd.
Yeah.
Todd hit him offensively, so if you go offensive on me and he stopped his rotation there and you're not able, like I'm not feeling that strap drive or anything here. And then once John drove him down, transferred to his press, that's all done.
So the next counter is the way Devin beat Michael Todd in their first meeting in Arm Wars.
And it's probably the most common way that people think of to beat the King's move.
Yeah.
It's just a climb out of the hand, right?
Yeah, so I'm fighting, it's rise against rise.
Yeah. One thing Devin explained to us in sort of one of the times that we were fortunate enough to have him at a practice was the idea that this move starts by fighting high. It doesn't start by trying to run and climb. If you skip the step of trying to fight the move high first and actually fight against the offensive drive, then it won't work. And that's kind of what he feels he did in 406.
Yeah.
Remember when he told us that, was that he kind of skipped fighting up high first and went to just trying to kick back and climb. And
because Todd's clamp was so good by in 406.
Yeah.
Devin wasn't able to climb out of his hand.
And part of that, he thinks, is because when you fight high, he's going to fight for some of that rotation, like just a little bit of it. So when he goes to kick back and fight, because that, like, it gives him more space to work to be able to climb out of the hand.
So let's demo that move then.
Yeah. So I'll hit offensively and you.
Yeah.
So offensive kings move this way.
So I'm kind of catching him in like a defensive top roll.
Yeah.
And then from this position, I'm hitting back and out, and then I'm trying to climb. Yeah.
And once he can get on top of that hand, if you what Devin likes to do is get behind it to press, but you could top roll from there too if you were not like strong enough or wanted to go that way, because once you've got so much of this hand, if you can compromise that rotation, right?
Yeah. If I can get on top of your hand,
yeah,
I can get my body over top, and I can lean over and press.
Exactly. Okay, so the first one, Brzezinque, mitigate the pronation with the lower part of your hand, or supination and drive. That's only going to work if you're predominantly stronger than your opponent. If it's a really good kings mover, that's probably not going to work. Mm-hmm. Second way is climbing out of the hand, but remember, in order to do that, you've got to fight up high first, so that as the drive happens, you've got somewhere to fight from. If you just go to kick back on that drive, you're going to lose too much of your hand there. Yeah. It's not going to work. Okay?
Okay, third counter, we've got kind of like an inside counter to the king's move. Ryan Bowen made a video on this with Ethan, and it's basically...
He figured it out with Bob Brown, right? That's where I really learned about it and saw him practicing it, and that's when I started playing with it a little bit, because one of the guys that we practice with, Tyler Hamilton, is a really good kings mover. So kings move against kings move, it does work, and we're going to get to that next, but this seemed like a better alternative.
Yeah, so the idea of this is the kings mover really doesn't want to be fully cupped in. So, and once you're fully cupped in, it's really hard for you to pronate. So if I can turn the king's mover fully cupped in, and I remove his ability to pronate, then his king's move is nullified. And he either has to come inside for a hook with me, which usually the king's mover does not want to do, or he's gonna really have to fight out of my hand.
Yeah. And once you've been turned into a hook, to access that rising roll that you do with the king's move, it actually becomes kind of difficult. So one of the other things that Ryan Bowen does when he does this that makes it effective is that as a king's mover, if I'm a defensive king's mover, this is where this move is really effective. In the sense that as I'm trying to get away, you to drive into my hand, and what Ryan Bowen does different is, instead of trying to set his hook this way by coming forward and going with me the way that I want the match to go, he comes away like the opposite direction that I want to go, which pulls me in, and now I feel like I'm in this weird position, and really it makes me feel like I want to come forward into a hook, which, if he's a good hook puller, that's probably going to be a horrible decision for me as a king's mover. And like I said, once I'm in this position here, to actually unroll somebody's hand and roll out of the king's move that way is really difficult. It's not very easy at all.
So this move starts just like the way Devin beat Michael Todd, where you start fighting high.
Yeah.
You can't just jump to the hook position down here, or you'll get pinned.
Or at least this is our sort of addition to this move, because we feel that that move only works effectively the way that Ryan explains it if the king's mover is only trying to be defensive. The way that Michael Todd does it, and the way that I've learned in my experience so far with the king's move, that if I just play defensive, especially if somebody's strong, they can drive into that king's move, and if they're ready for it, and I don't have time to actually get out of their hand, and it doesn't work. So what I needed to establish was some sort of an offensive drive, that if that drive fails and they start to bring me back, I have a king's move to fall into. If we're in a ready go position and Alex tries that move against me, it doesn't work because I hit. If we're in a slow pull situation where I'm holding, I go to hold in my king's move a bit, and he starts to do that to me, all of a sudden it's really uncomfortable, and then that doesn't work. So the problem with Ryan's move coming away from you this way is that it leaves you open to get hit. So it's similar to Devin's move, right? Is what I'm saying.
Exactly. You have to fight their pronation and height off the go, even though you're not really trying to fight it in the match.
Yeah, you've got to get them to run away, basically. Yeah. If I feel like you're going to go that way, I'm going to attack. So you've got to get me to feel like, okay, I don't want to try to fight through that. Let's roll away from it and get him stuck in this move, and then he can start to do it, and it doesn't feel good. So that's our opinion on Ryan's inside King's Move counter. Think it works, just has to be used properly because there's a way to fight it as a King's Mover if you have an offensive hit.
Right.
All right, so we're going to go over the fourth way to counter the King's Move. And this is kind of similar to the way that Devin did it when he had his little surprise match with Michael down at Juji's place. And it's similar to how they do it out in London, where they pull with Crazy George. So it's really effective for a top roller. So the top roller is really susceptible to the King's Move because they like to hit quickly, and usually the King's Move stops you right below the pad, or right above the pad, sorry, and then they feel like, shit, I'm really close, so they hit again and again and again, and each time they hit, they lose more and more hand, and then eventually they're like, shit, I'm in a shitty position, and they're nowhere near the pad anymore. Yeah. So it kind of looks something like this, right? So if I'm the top roller, I'm gonna hit super hard, and boom, just before the pad it stops, I'm like, fuck, okay, let's go again. Bang, and then bang, and then bang, and I'm like, ah, shit, look where I am now. And that's really bad, right? So I'm gonna call it a slow top roll, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
Because the faster you go, the worse it gets.
Or the more excited, right? You know? Yeah. Because the first part of it is still fast. So I still want to get some movement to my side of the table, but as soon as I feel that pressure that I know from the King's Move in my hand, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna fight for some rise and fight to the front of the pad. Okay, I don't need to commit totally like I'm coming straight forward, but the King's Mover, I'm not really afraid of him ripping into me and coming across. And if you do, I can fight up and roll back and kind of King's Move myself. And it's a great little defense. But usually the King's Mover won't do that. So I fight forward, and now I'm gonna top roll again and try to drag. Sorry guys, camera died. So basically, you're in the middle of hitting again, and then you're gonna push to the front of the pad again, you're gonna hit back again, push to the front of the pad, and each time you hit, you're trying not to drive to the side, you're just trying to get back, maybe get into his thumb a little bit, or up his thumb if you can a little bit, and make sure not to lose any flexion. The way that's gonna happen is if you get too aggressive and try to hit to the side. So back to where we wanna be. We're up here, front of the pad pushing forward, back of the pad pulling, push, pull, okay? Once we're close to the pad and we feel like he's kinda maybe working, getting tired, or we're feeling like we gotta make a move now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna set our feet and we're gonna drag to the other side of the pad. And once we do this, we can either hit again or we can drop in for a press. And it works really well. So those are our 4 counters.
If you like the video, please like the video.
Leave a comment, give us some feedback, share the video.
And monkeys out.
Peace. Not this time.